Good morning.
Morning.
We're delighted to have you here. We know we're all going through this crazy time with COVID. You know, can we be out? Can we not go out? If we go out, how far do we have to distance? Do we wear masks? And so when I'm presenting today, I will have my mask off. It will remind me to put it back on afterwards. But we're delighted you're here and appreciate your I know our sign said mask highly recommended. When we had spoken with the church earlier this week, that was their status at that time. Since then, they require, which is fine. So we weren't trying to contradict what they were asking. It's just when we first found out, that's what it was. So we appreciate that. And if you don't have masks, because they have paper masks around, and I know there's still what kind of mask works or doesn't work or whatever. But if anybody wants a nice cloth mask, and we have our Seniors Living Smarter mask out there on the table. So for those of you, well, I think I at least met you briefly when you came in, I'm Virginia Lazenby. I'm a certified senior downsizing coach and realtor. And some people, what in the world is a downsizing coach? Well, downsizing, most of you know, that big process. When we decide it's time to move to a smaller place or whatever, and lots of things associated with that, from the move to getting rid of stuff to the whole pulling it together, getting your house ready to sell if you have a house to sell. And so that's what I just have a special focus on, serving seniors. I am a realtor. I've incorporated the downsizing with it and have a business related to it that is focused on downsizing. You'll hear more about that. But we started the seminars, actually this is our 7th year. It's just so hard. Where's Gary Cox? Where'd you go, Gary?
Right in front of you, in the red shirt.
I think Gary is our champion. You started with us back at the Georgetown Library. We were at the library for a year. Then we moved to First Presbyterian, and we were there 3.5 years almost till COVID came. Then we've been online for a year and a half, and now we're live again. So we're excited to be back with people. We know some people don't feel comfortable being out yet, and I can certainly respect that. We will be recording the presentation, and then next week it will be up on our website, so people will have access to it. But it's just nice to have that personal connection and interaction, so we're thrilled about that. The purpose of the seminars is to educate, equip, and inspire seniors to make informed choices and empowered decisions. And we're really committed to people having information. You know, we say, oh, I'm not ready for any of that stuff. If we wait until we're ready, that often means a crisis has occurred. And then it's a little bit late to gather information and so on. So I applaud you for taking time to be here, and especially in these conditions. But it's a great time. It's a great way of sharing information with people. I'm curious. I've already given away Gary was here back in the library days. Raise your hand if you have attended live seminars previously. I know you, okay. Okay, Michelle. So that's great. So we have a number of you, you've been around for a while to come back. Some of you joined us during our virtual Zoom seminars, which was so great to be able to maintain that, but every time we would do it, we'd start broadcasting and going, this is really working. This is really working. I don't know. It would be a panic attack. So it's good to be live. How many of you attended virtually? How many of you? All right. Great. So some of you have been all the way through. And we're delighted to welcome new people with us. The seminars are held the second Tuesday of each month. And for some of you, that's, I always say Tuesday, I don't know why. Second Thursday. We were the third Thursday, but we were running into conflicts, so for consistency this year we are second Thursday. So we're delighted and hope you find the seminars informative so you'll want to return. Some things I do want to mention is, again, it's information, and it's very important that we provide. We do have educational partners who join with us, And we have their tables set up over here. And this is where after or before the seminars, you're welcome to visit with our educational partners. These are businesses and services that are really committed to seniors having information. Yes, we'd like to do business with you, but most importantly, we want you to have information, so they're great resources. So I hope after the seminar, you'll take a chance to visit with our educational partners. We call them that because we are sharing education. So today, in fact, I'll just we have Wesleyan Homes represented. There she is back there, Holly. Wesleyan Homes, of course, has been a mainstay here in Georgetown. They have the senior living options from independent living to assisted living, memory care, hospice, home care, home health. They cover the wide gamut.
That's it.
And so, Holly will be glad to visit with you, obviously about their services, but also representing the industry in general too. We have Visiting Angels. Stacy Scarborough is with us. Visiting Angels, of course, provides great home care. Again, you say, I don't need home care today. No, you don't. But sometimes things change. People can fall off of ladders, or things happen. So knowing ahead of time, and Visiting Angels has been a great resource for people. And one of the things we see is that so often we have wrong information. I think that's one of the things I'm really strong about with the seminars, because we go by what our neighbors say. Oh no, you have to sign a long-term contract. You have to do a minimum of so many hours forever and ever. And I don't want that. Get the facts, people. And there's a lot more flexibility and so on. So anyway, Stacy's representing Visiting Angels. And Seniors Living Smarter Services, which is my downsizing business. Today, Debbie Brockway, who's my property specialist, will be at our table. Seniors Living Downsizing Services is focused on downsizing. We have a team that we can work with you with the move management, the liquidation, property prep, so it supports Seniors Living Smarter, which is a real estate business. So Debbie will be glad to answer questions and all about that, but take time to visit. And there are two people that I want to give a very, very special thank you. One of them probably won't hear me. Jeff Krant. Jeff was my marketing person and website person, and his role has evolved over the years. Last year he became our Zoom person, and back to being our AV tech person now. So we appreciate Jeff being here. And Brielle Gard, who you met at the front check-in table. Brielle is administrative assistant. Fantastic resource. She worked very hard to put together your resources. We'll talk about those in just a minute. And I think what is so exciting for me, Jeff and Brielle have no idea how much I appreciate them. You can have marketing people or web people. You can have administrative assistants who do a great job. But I'm so fortunate there's so much more than that. They really embrace our mission and celebrate it and really are just so absolutely committed. Quick story about Jeff. He is so committed to this. So there's a little fudging going on here. Jeff and I worked together, I guess 12 years. I always forget to go back and count. When I originally designed my real estate website, he, through a company I was going through a training program with, he was the copywriter I interviewed, and he stuck with me for all these years. Now, Jeff was in Philadelphia 12 years ago when we started this, and he was just so enamored with this as it developed that he had to come to Georgetown, he and his wife. Well, the fact that his daughter was married to her husband was getting out of the Navy, and they had 3-year-old twin boys, and her husband found employment in Austin. How convenient. So they actually followed the grandkids here. I say they followed us here, but we're glad to have Jeff here and his support. Let me see if there were any other. Oh yeah, so a little bit about our format. And one thing I always want to let people know, if you need the restroom, you're down the hall right here. Feel free to take advantage of that if you need that. The way our format works on the seminars is we will swing into our focus of our presentation shortly. And we have a free flow dialogue, not a dialogue, but topics that we're going to be discussing and sharing information. And I'm sure as we go through that, there are going to be questions that come up. But I've learned, just as you're ready to raise your hand and ask your question, if you'll take your nifty-difty pen and write the question down in your binder so then you're ready to ask it at the end. We will leave plenty of time for questions towards the end, but get us through the content we know we want to cover, and then we're glad to respond to questions. So that's what our format will be, and we'll finish by 11:30 and invite you to visit with our educational partners at that time. Let's see. Okay. So, before we get with our program today, let me highlight, it's going to be the Vanna White demonstration of our binders. And I hope Rielle hears me. She's worked hard on these, but this is a great resource for you. Over the years, we've often had people say, wow, we've gotten such good information, and I've saved the handouts, I've saved my notes, I have them, so I can turn back to them when I do need them. And people will say, I told my kids, if anything happens and I need something, go to my notebook and you'll find who I want to help me out. So this year, in celebration of being live seminars again, we have provided you with a notebook. It's also a great way to take notes. But you'll have your notebook here, and it is truly a resource binder. So I hope you will consider that and use it and build and personalize it. On the first page, you'll see we have the listing of the seminars for the year. I said the second Thursday of each month. And this is what, as we talk about being a resource, we've added this page, my peace of mind checklist. And these are different topics. Some of you will say, yay, I have all that under control. I've already done that. I've done that. And give yourself a pat in the back and celebrate. Some of us will say, ooh, I guess I do need to think about a will. I do need to think about an estate plan. So this can be kind of a trigger for different things for you to really be prepared for embracing and living the fullest of these, our senior years. And then, yes, you do have to look behind that. But this is kind of a checklist. You can add your own information behind that. And then we've also been even more specific with my important contacts. Who is it who you turn to? Because we've had situations, maybe a temporary situation where kids need to come in and help out. They don't know who does your lawn. They don't know who you would like to have come in for home care. They don't know what community you've been talking to. And this is a way for you to collect that information and have it available to share with others. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. And then we will, we have our local senior resource guide. And this is just a handy dandy home care. Who can I turn to for general information? Hospice. Things change. So when you have some of these, sometimes people go out of business, new people come in, but we will continue to revise it as we can. But we encourage you, so everything from grief services to mental health, housing. We've not listed all the communities here. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But so this is general information that you could turn to. Also, the last page there, for those of you who are looking for ways to volunteer, we have that listed as well.
What was that last thing you said?
The local resource, under the local resource guide, the last page is volunteer opportunities. It's right before the red divider in your binder. Okay. So those first pages are general pages. And then when we start with our red divider page, these are materials specifically for today that we will be highlighting as we go through. You'll see the first page behind the red page. That's that place where you can write down questions. So you'll be ready to ask questions during our question and answer time. We always want to include action steps. The time to attend the seminar, what is it that would be your next steps? What information do you need? How could you follow up and extend that? So, getting together that information on my peace of mind checklist, filling out your important contacts worksheet, register for our upcoming seminar, which we'll talk about in a minute, and invite a friend to join you next month. Then we have our list of our educational partners. We're hoping to need their services, return to their great services to take advantage of. And then the next few pages we'll highlight as we go through the presentation today. So, and in the front of your binder, there's a little yellow half sheet. It's our feedback form. If you could share information with us, the usual seminar feedback in terms of how would you rate it, did you learn new things today to make you feel more empowered or inspired to take action. And so that's there, and on the back, contact information if you'd like to leave that so we can follow up with you and keep you. We send out monthly postcards to announce the seminars to the people who we have mailing information for. Then we also do emails, reminders, and sign-ups, so that's listed there. One of the things on the back of this yellow sheet is a downsizing club. I'm going to talk about that at the end. And complimentary downsizing consultation. Sometimes I just don't even know where to begin. That's one of the things, we can see if it would be appropriate for us to visit in person to kind of help fill in some of the pieces and look at the long-term plan to create. So that's our resource there. And let's see. I think what I would like to do is to invite our resource person today to join me up here, Penny Leone. This is fun to have Penny as our resource person. I'm going to give a brief introduction and let her explain some more. But Penny is changing roles with us today. For those of you who attended seminars when we were at First Presbyterian, which we loved our home there, but parking can be a challenge. And so she was our AV tech person at First Presbyterian, and now we've switched roles. Oh, I think someone's turning off their hearing aid. Oh, okay, you're going to check her mic. So, as a registered nurse and as parish nurse for First Presbyterian, she too deals a lot with seniors as we're going through concerns about how to make the most of our lives, how to be prepared. Penny, you want to give us a little bit more introduction about your background and why you're here?
Sure. But first, I'm going to tell you something that maybe not many of you know about this woman. Do you realize why she has a doctorate in education? Her husband knows. Thank God he knows.
I should have given another thank you shout out to my husband, Don Harper. He did it for putting up with all my craziness. So.
I've been in Georgetown since 1979, so I might be considered by some as an old timer. And I have a husband who is a retired helicopter pilot. I have worked at Georgetown Hospital mostly. Don says you can't hear.
I can hear, but.
Is that better?
That's better.
Oh,
That's better.
It's magic.
Needs to be turned on.
So y'all heard she's a doctor. I've been in Georgetown since '79. My husband is a retired helicopter pilot. I worked at First Presbyterian Church 24 and a half years. Pretty proud of that. But during that time, as I worked part-time there at First Pres, I also worked at Georgetown Hospital for many years. I have worked for Texas Instruments as an industrial nurse. I've worked in a pregnancy aid center as a nurse manager. I've worked for Dr. Bonnie Stump as her RN on staff. So I've done quite a few things, but certainly parish nursing is my passion. It's what I love the most.
So when I thought about this topic today, peace of mind, I wanted it's to be our first seminar for the year because I see it as a great kickoff, kind of a broad introduction, and to get people thinking about what do we need to do to have information and be prepared. And I think, who can be the best person I know that can really help us fill in some gaps or share information? And so I thought, well, here she is. Penny would be a great resource. So I appreciate Penny being with us today. Peace of mind. We're going to have a little, see if I can get some audience interaction here. Not necessarily related to this particular topic about seniors, but what gives you peace of mind, just generally? Any people want to share? What gives you peace of mind?
Free from worry.
Free from worry. Okay. And what makes you free from worry?
Knowledge.
Knowledge.
He's
Planning.
Insurance.
Pardon me?
Insurance.
Yeah, and insurance can be literal insurance policies, but our own insurance by knowing that we know what we're doing, where we're planning, what we're planning for, where we're going. Anybody else?
Trusting.
Trusting.
Health.
Help.
Health.
Help.
Health.
Yeah. We want to maintain, and what do we do? Well, extra challenges now with COVID, but yet, staying in the best shape that we can, all of those are important things. And I think taking away the uncertainties, that's a lot like the knowledge and all. And so what we want to do today is we've selected areas, as Penny and I brainstormed about what would be the best areas to cover today. We could go on forever and ever. And some of the topics we will be touching on or, delving into more deeply in seminars through the year, or we'll share resources with you. But as you've seen today, if you've seen it up here, we have a sequence of kind of topics that we want to share, and especially share resources, and we will open it up for questions. One of the things I think, and I don't know if you can find the quote, David Soley, but as
It's
we
there.
plan this, I think one, if you can read it, sorry. As seniors, there are a lot of uncertainties. We don't know what's going to happen and so on. There's also, we're still developing. We watched our children or relatives or friends, we're always caught the terrible twos. No. As children, as toddlers are wanting to develop their own independence and how important that is. We see that again with adolescents. They want to be in control. And we go on to our adult careers and family years and so on. As seniors, there's still that developmental process going on, wanting to maintain control. A little complicated now because in many ways we feel like, we are losing control. Things are changing around us. It's not the same. We're losing friends. We may be having more health issues. We may need people to help us in more ways than we used to. And so all of that is, but how can I maintain control? A lot of that has to do with having information, knowledge, resources, and that's what we're really about. And so by peace of mind, we're thinking about maintaining control, but there's another developmental process also. Leaving a legacy. What are we going to be remembered for? What do we want people to know that was important to us and for us, that we were passionate about? For our families to know? Some people say, well, I don't have families, who am I passing it on to? But community organizations you've been a part of and have enriched the community. So there are lots of things. But so we're going to, that was sort of our framework for this, is supporting seniors in maintaining control and then also leaving a legacy. And we'll share resources about both of those. So, and one of the things on the topics, organizing your information. So our binder is a great tool. It's, besides being a nice writing surface, we've really worked hard to help you think of ways to what's critical for you to gather. And I want us to give a round of applause to Brielle, who's standing at the back right there. She has, as she said yesterday when I called her, she answered the phone with Brielle's print shop. And the truth of the matter is I've been out of town, so Brielle and Jeff have been working very hard on this. So, organizing information, sharing local resources. That's in your binder. We encourage you to look through that, become familiar, add your own information in there. One of the topics that we wanted to address, and Penny feels it was neat because it's one of the things that comes out first when she talks about seniors and maintaining control but making adaptations perhaps as necessary, is that question of driving and transportation. So Penny, take it from there and we'll see what we can share and resources and so on.
I'm going to spend about 15 seconds here asking you, what do you think your children worry about, your adult children?
We have one live demonstration here if we want to, one adult child with her mother. Not to put you on the spot, Lynn.
We won't put Gwen on the spot. If she wants to ask, you answer. She's the expert.
What was the question?
What do you think your grown children worry about?
Falling.
About us, you mean?
Yeah, okay. Well,
What was your
Our
answer
driving.
Falling.
first? Falling. Okay. Right.
they see the commercial on TV where the woman with the laundry basket has fallen down the stairs. And you know, I mean, I can think of not even falling on the stairs, but I've had people who, you know, have fallen and haven't had help for a while.
I would also add dementia or loss of memory.
Okay. I agree. I was, you think because we're sitting in the seminar, I'm asking specifically about what do your kids worry about you. But if you think about the answers that Virginia elicited when she said, what brings you peace of mind? Probably a good guess is that your children have exactly the same concerns. And yes, you're a piece of that, but it all becomes very important to understand that when we think about our kids or ourselves, it's not either or, it's and. And so that's what I'm hoping will bring to you today, is that a realization that your kids also, and sometimes being worried about feels like a wet blanket. Oh my gosh, they're telling me not to get up and take my Christmas lights down again. But it also can feel like a warm comforter. And so I hope by the end of this conversation today that you'll begin to understand how to help that maybe feeling like a wet blanket thing to become a warm comforter for you, so that you have control and your kids feel like they have some peace of mind from you, for your amount of control on theirs. Okay, what was the question again?
Transportation driving.
Transportation. Okay, so there is a lot of information back here behind your red sheet about transportation. The biggest one is from the talks about the driving guide, and it's pretty comprehensive. But obviously you keep driving your car like you have for the past 45, 50, 55, 60 years. And that is still a possibility. The first thing I want to tell you about is a mobility specialist or an evaluation that you can have from either St. David's down. The bad news is it's the one down in Austin there off of just past Airport Boulevard, or there's a lady who's up in Killeen that also does this sort of thing. But she will come, she specifically, her advantage is she comes to you, so you're in your neighborhood, and she evaluates your driving. And both of those, I've had experience with both. Both of those entities, their purpose is not to take away your keys. They want to keep you as active and as moving and able to manage your own transportation as long as possible, as safely as possible. And they have a lot of ways to do it. And I had one lady who I took down there, she went back 3 times and they worked with her to a point where she understood it was coming. She maybe was not going to be in a place where it was safe to do that, but she could do these specific things to make sure that when she drove around the 6 blocks from her house, that she was safe. So know that if you say, okay, or your kids say, I don't know about to drive anymore, you say, hey, I got the answer. Let's let the experts help us with this. The one down at St. David's, because of the way they're set up and their pay system and everything, usually Medicare pays for. The lady up in Killeen, it is a out-of-pocket expense at this point. But we can go back into that later. There's also services. Yes.
I just want to follow up about the one from Killeen. If you look under in your back, I know we're going to be flipping back and forth, but under the local resource guide, back before the red pages, driving safety happened to be our first category there. And who Penny is referring to is the functional stability and mobility evaluations and testing. Some of you have met Megan Frazier. She's been here on some of our panels before. She's an occupational therapist. She does the driving evaluations. And, sometimes it can show families, yes, mom or dad can still drive. Here are some recommendations, like not trying to go to HEB during rush hours, because when is it not? But the idea would be find a back road in perhaps, but how to keep people as safe as possible, as you said, driving as long as possible. And also, I was just speaking with Megan earlier this week, just confirming, about these plans and all. If you know yourself or family or friends with neuropathy, and if they're having to convert from regular driving to hand controls, she does that training for people too. So, it's an amazing resource. Besides just her whole occupational therapy about, aging in place and keeping a safe environment. So we do have the contact information. First, St. David's in Austin, it's interesting how that's the one place where you can have that evaluation done and have it run through insurance. Others are private pay, but long run, it may be worth that investment. So
And if you have Scott and Wine Insurance, I believe they also have some place that you can go to do that. It might be Temple. So there's obviously Uber, there's Lyft, there is senior, I'm sorry, I'm having a hiccup in my brain here. Faith in Action, thank you. Faith in Action, you have to be set up ahead of time for that. Don't wait till the morning you need the ride. There's a process that you have to go through that. But once you've gone through that process, then it's pretty immediate. There's something called GoGo Grandparent, and that is actually a concierge service. So you do pay something, it's a minimum of $9 or $10 a month, up to something like $400 a month. But anyhow, they set up rides for you, make sure they're safe, and they also have neat things about, letting your kids know where you are, and all kinds of different things. But those are all out there. Also, this is a piece of information that you may not know. With your insurance, not your Medicare, but your secondary insurance, you may have a service that will provide free rides for you, up to something like 25 or 50 rides a month. Of course, a ride to Temple is one too. But still, know about that, and know that it's free, and know that it's pretty easy to access. We used to have a bus system. We don't anymore. It's general with carts and things. But anyhow, that's all covered in there. I think that's enough to beat on about transportation.
So if you need more information about some of the things Penny has mentioned, she'll be around afterwards to visit with you too. But again, it comes under that being prepared. And I know as people begin to make their own adjustments, sometimes for some of us driving in dark at night with the lights, it makes it more difficult. We just have to realize and accept and adapt. And so that's what we're really encouraging people to do. But hopefully it gives you some resources to think about. So I think, are we ready to move on to our next topic? Penny? Okay, great. Senior living options. Can we put that slide up there? Okay. And some of you are very familiar with senior living options. Some of you, it's something new. And so we're just going to briefly outline just some of what are the hallmarks of this, and then hopefully help you plan ahead. Again, that's what we're really wanting to do. When we talk about senior living options, we're often talking about how we can reduce the maintenance. I know many of us say, I'm never leaving my house. Okay, that's great. And we're talking about aging in place. Sometimes you wake up one morning and say, I do not want to go to the store one more time. I know they will deliver to me, but I don't want to figure that out either. I want to just go and have my meals prepared. It's one of the things we talk about with senior living options. But some ideas that I put up here, again, I'll be glad to visit with people. Aging in place. For those who say, I'm never leaving my home, that's fine. What do you do to plan ahead to be able to remain in your home as long as possible? We'll be doing a whole seminar about this in 3 months, I think. But that whole thing, whatever, there might be some adaptations in your house in terms of safety, removing rugs, tripping hazards, and increasing lighting and all. But planning ahead, both for the physical environment of your home, but also, okay, there may be times I need some support. I need someone to come in with home, helping me with more than just cleaning my home, but maybe sometimes I need someone to help me get dressed in the morning or get ready for bed or to check on me. And that's where we have groups like Visiting Angels. Stacy will visit with you about that. But for people to be familiar with those kinds of services, there's the home care, and home health is separate. And that's what sometimes people don't understand. And so those are things to be prepared. Both how can I keep my home environment safe for me, and what resources? How will I, if I need care? And I also encourage as people think about aging in place, what's so critical for us as we age? Stay active, keep our minds challenged, interact with people. And so if you're remaining in your own home, what are those ways you're going to continue to be stimulated? And there's some great resources for people, but again, it's knowing ahead and preparing for that. So we're just doing little teasers today to get you to think about that. When we talk about senior communities, and I just wanted to go through some of these differences and highlight it for you. Active adult communities. It's like Sun City, like Texas Traditions, like Heritage Oaks. It's a commonality of seniors. Usually a lot of amenities, not all, but Sun City for sure with the amenities. And so there's that draw to people. That people who are active in their own homes, taking care of themselves, and that's great. Perhaps people reach a time when you say, I'm tired of doing meal prep. I'm tired of wondering about, is the insurance going to take care of the roof, hail damage on my roof? Hopefully we won't have that this year. And hopefully we don't have to endure another blizzard like last year. But if one decides you want to give up some of those responsibilities of home maintenance, home care, and so on, care of your house, independent living. And hopefully people are learning more about these areas when people will say, oh no, I can't move to one of those communities. No, I can't give up my independence. Well, but I really don't leave my house anymore because I can't drive and I'm really kind of bored. Well, you might want to check the opportunities with the independent living communities. The hallmark of independent living communities is there is some type of meal plan. It may be 3 meals a day. It may be a food allowance to use in their dining rooms or whatever, and there are different ways, but there is their meals planned. If you go back 55 plus apartments, you don't have the responsibility of your home. You're in an apartment, a smaller environment. 55 plus apartments generally offer a lot of amenities that are popular with seniors. And they may have social gatherings planned, but there's not a daily meal plan. And for some people, they like that. I had a woman this year, when she called me, she was ready to give up her home. She said, I'm ready to make my move. And I asked her where she was going. She told me, and she was going to a 55 plus apartment. I was kind of surprised at first. And I said, oh, she said, oh, no, she said, I don't want a meal plan. I want to do my own meals. So, you know, you gotta check out these, but that's what 55 plus apartments are. It's age restricted, they're usually amenities, so it has those benefits. In independent living, we have meal plans. Generally, there are lots of activities, but you have your own apartment. You come and go. You're not under somebody's, you're independent. You're active. People come and travel, do whatever. So, afterwards, if you want to visit more with Holly about Wesleyan's independent living and independent living in general, I can visit with you about that. The advantage to being in an independent living community is it's very easy to interact with other people. And I think that's the beauty of it. And many of you have heard our seminars that we've had, and we will during the year, have residents share with us what they like about it. Everything from beanbag baseball to, not having to worry about as a lawn crew coming to take care of my house and so on. So in independent living, some people, oh yeah, it's like where my grandmother lived, in a nursing home. No, it's not. Let's get accurate information, people. Independent living means independent active living. Sometimes we reach a point where we need a little more assistance. We talk about assistance with activities of daily living. That often has to do with grooming, showering, getting dressed in the morning, getting ready for bed in the evening. You may need help with medication, and that's where we often turn to assisted living. Now, this opens up a whole, different discussions here. We have, also we have people who remain in independent living with extra care coming in to cover some of those areas and to support them. But we also have separate assisted living communities. For instance, here in Georgetown, we also have them just not that far away, but our independent living communities would be the Wesleyan, this is dangerous, I'm going to skip somebody, Wesleyan, the Delaney, the Oaks, Truewood, and now we have Brand Living on them. Okay, so those are independent living. Now, assisted living, sometimes it's just freestanding assisted living. Brookdale over here on the east side, it's still Brookdale, isn't it?
I think so. It's Julie House, it's up there.
Yeah, Carol, what's the last name? I think it's Brookdale. That is assisted living. We had Truewood out of Williams just before Sun City was assisted living when it was Legacy, and then they incorporated independent living. They're both now too. And there will be some others I'm going blank on right now. In West, yeah, that's to say, then we have the communities that offer different levels of care. Wesleyan has independent and assisted and memory care. Delaney has independent assisted memory care. And so those are all within the same community. And we can share more specifics with you about assisted living. But it is mainly, the difference is assisting you with activities of daily living if necessary. But you go into an assisted living, there are activities going on, Oh, one thing, I'm gonna just get this out there. No, I cannot move to a 900 square foot apartment. It's too small. Okay, we're gonna have a little duel here. I understand it's small, but you know what, folks? The idea is you're not just living in that apartment. You're out and about. You're interacting with other people. You have a huge living space because it's all your living space. And I worked with a woman this fall. She had the most wonderful attitude about that. She knew that it was time for her to be prepared. And she said, I'm not going to be in my apartment the whole time. It's where but I know that. And I'm I'm gonna be out interacting with people, so those are all considerations. I know, it still seems small. But, so we have independent living, assisted living, memory care. The difference with memory care is usually the main thing is security. They're in a more secure environment. And so again, in our area, Wesleyan and Delaney, and then we have freestanding memory care, as with Cedar Trails, I think it is, Tiffin House, Bader House, Rockway. Anyway, there's some others too, but if you need more information, we can help with that. On our Seniors Living Smarter website, we have information about senior living options and each of those categories, and then information about communities here in the Georgetown area and radiating out. We're not trying to cover all of Austin, but into Round Rock and not too far away, Cedar Park, Leander. So all of those are possibilities. Then we have on our list CCRCs. This is, and I chuckle because it kind of gets confusing for some people, but a true community, continuing care retirement community is a community that offers all levels of care. So do some of these others. The difference is there is a contractual relationship that if something were to happen and you needed assisted living, you are guaranteed that you're not top of the waiting list. The difference, the advantage is there's a contract you sign for, in essence, for care throughout your life. You have to enter when you're in independent living, and you have to have the financial means. The truth of the matter is, for most of the CCRCs, you pay a very large deposit, an entry fee, a buy-in type, but for that amount, then you are guaranteed the remainder of your life you are going to be paid what you're paying now for independent living. So say some freak thing would have happened and I needed to go into assisted living next year, but I'm still going to be paying what I paid for my independent living. I don't need assisted living for 15 years. Who knows what it will cost by then. But I will continue. Roughly, there's a slight cost of living increase. There's for additional meals or some things, but you're guaranteed. I know I just had some people in our area. There's 3 CCRCs in Austin. There's some others that offer more hybrids. Westminster, down across from Camp Mabry, is a CCRC. Longhorn Village and Steiner Ranch, and Carencia out in Barton Creek. All 3 of those are true CCRCs. We just had one of our clients who moved to Longhorn Village. It was a peace of mind truly for them. The wife was having more health issues. The husband wanted to make sure they were in a place where she would continue to live there. And they knew what the cost would be. And I learned something from their experience because she would not qualify on her own. She wouldn't qualify for independent living. She lives independently, but nevertheless, there have been health issues. But there was a caveat of some different funding, different paying resources, so they could still qualify and go into a CCRC, which was a great peace of mind for them. So I know those are just teasers and tidbits, but for some of you, yes, I knew that. Others of you go, I don't know that. Write your note and ask a question or follow up with me afterwards. But I wanted to give an overview. One of our programs later this year will be about senior living options, navigating those and how to visit. You need to see communities, and not after you need them. Go visit. Because Christy Schuler while Holly is here representing Wesleyan, which we really appreciate today, Christy Schuler, I always have to go, is it Bryant or Schuler? Was Bryant, now Schuler. Christy is the one, you can take tours and learn about all of these communities, and not just there. You can visit others. And finding out what works for you may not be the same as what works for your neighbor. Check it out, see what it feels like. What are the meals like? What kind of activities are there? On your, I think a part on your resource book, if I'm considering this. If something were to change and I needed to move to independent living community, here's where I think I would like to go. And it gives your kids a heads up for that. So we're going to move on from that because we could spend a lot more time on that topic too. And then let's move on into hospice. Now I know go. Hospice. I'm not ready to die. I don't want to talk about that topic. Hospice, well, at least for me, as I've learned so much more in the senior industry. Hospice is so much more than the last 2 weeks of life, which I think a lot of us is kind of what we thought hospice was. It's a great resource, something we need to know about ahead of time. Penny, share with us about hospice.
I'm going to, right after I tell you a little bit about medical alert systems.
Oh, okay.
Those are things that
That's
are
right,
helpful
thank
for
you.
your children's peace of mind and your peace of mind. They no longer, well, they do still have the kind that hang around your neck. So when you go to the HEB, everybody goes. You have wristwatches now. They all have all kinds of elegant things. Prices range from okay to holy moly. You get a lot of stuff when you go with holy moly. The one thing I want to tell you about that is you've got to wear the thing. You can't leave it on your dresser at night. You must wear it 24 hours, 7 days a week. If you take it off, because like me, I don't want anything on my wrists or anything when I'm sleeping, lay it on the floor next to your bed. Because if you fall in the night, it will not be particularly accessible when you have to reach farther than you can reach when you have something hurt on your body. So that's my word on that. I've never heard anybody complain about any of them. This is a list on your handout of the ones that I've heard a lot about. Nobody's ever complained about them. I also know that GoGo Grandparent has that facility with that thing with their concierge service also. So just know that that's out there, and know that you don't have to wear it. Okay.
And for people with Apple Watches, you've got kind of a built-in system there, so I understand.
I understand that, and I just realized that you probably heard nothing that I just said. Is there anything you missed that you really want me to repeat?
But there is a page in here with your medical alert systems, and these are ones that Penny is familiar with. And so, others we can add on to it at some time, but we wanted to, so we get these mailings, we don't know anything about these groups, which is true. So we're at least trying to help you know some beginning points.
Right. I wouldn't sign a contract with anybody unless you really think, oh my gosh, this is the one. Because the need for it and the non-need for it will come very quickly. Okay, so hospice. Hospice. We all would like to be like Mrs. Wesley, who lived in Leroy, Illinois, and she served cotton balls dipped in sugar to the Halloween kids that came over the night before she died. It was a joke. Everybody laughed. Everybody wanted to go to her house to get those. That night she went to bed at 89 years old and woke up in heaven the next day. Everybody wants that for themselves. I will tell you my experience is that for most of us, that's not how it happens. My favorite, very favorite quote probably in the entire world is by Chuck Myers, who was a chaplain down at St. David's, Maine, when that was the only St. David's there was. And he said, this is a profound statement for you. Are you ready? Life is a sexually transmitted disease that is always fatal. So the question is, for us today, right? Do we agree with that? The question today is, what security can I supply for myself and for my children as the end of my earthly life begins to happen? as Virginia just said, hear that it is not the last week of your life. Hospice has grown and become more and more and more user-friendly, better financed over the years. There is a fallacy, because it was a truthism, that you had to have a diagnosis that said you were going to die within 6 months. They won't pay, whoever they are, Medicare, insurance, whoever, won't pay if you live longer than 6 months. Thank God. The wording is still somewhat like that. However, you can be renewed over and over and over again. The advantage of hospice is that you don't just have support for yourself. It's not about you, especially with hospice. There is wonderful support for your family, your caregivers, even for your friends. It's a complete team. And the best part is they know how to do stuff. They know how to make you comfortable without giving you shots, without looping you out of your mind. If you don't want to be looped out of your mind, you get a lot of control, because they will ask you, how comfortable do you want to be? How aware do you want to be? And you know what? You get control over that. That's crazy awesome, because most of us really aren't too afraid of dying. We might be afraid of being dead, but not be afraid of dying. But what we're afraid of is being in pain as it's happening. So hospice supplies that. They supply help for everybody around you. They supply equipment. And all of this is to you free. So know that even if your doctor begins to talk to you about hospice, or perhaps palliative care, there's some wording that's different, but essentially we're looking at what you have going on with you is going to be probably what ends your life, and that it's going to be more imminent than maybe those of you that aren't in that place. We're all dying at some pace. So real quick in there, you guys read, so I'm not going to go on to that, but that's, when do I know to do this? Well, one, your doctor will probably have that conversation. If not, your family may be having it, or if not, if you're wondering, ask your doctor. Doctors are human beings. They don't always feel comfortable. As a matter of fact, most of the doctors I know don't feel comfortable with death. They see it as a big old, I failed. When in actuality, they know the truth is that they can do everything right, everything to the book, everything standard of care, and you're still going to die. They could do everything wrong, and you're still going to live. That's the good news. So know that when you're dealing with your doctor, that person is a human being also. So if they haven't brought it up and you're thinking, wow, I kind of noticed some things that maybe bring it up. Communication, really important. There's a list of that. It talks a little bit about the difference between hospice and, does it not? Did we not put that in? The difference between a hospice and palliative care.
It's on the next page, turn it over. So-
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. So there it talks about palliative care. What's paid for, what's not.
And back in our local resource guide, back towards the front, hospice is one of the categories there. Wesleyan, Holly's with us today. Wesleyan offers hospice, but you'll see others listed there, those kinds of things that you might be wanting to be familiar with. What are the services they offer? How do you feel about it? Talking to friends that, I had a client a couple years ago, her husband passed away the previous year, and she could not say enough wonderful words about hospice and how reassuring it had been, both for her husband as he was facing end of life, but for her and the support that was provided for her, and even after his passing, there was still follow-up support, I believe, for her and family and so on. You know, we're not in this world alone. We are a social being. We are social beings, and we're so fortunate to have the resources and services that we have. So hospice is one of those, and I'm sure if you want a more personal story from Penny about some of these, she can share. But we do have, I think there's 6 listed here, including Wesleyan. So if you wanted, to begin to check those out. I know you're not planning on using it anytime soon, but just in case somebody you know is, that would be listed there. Right? Anything else?
And Hospice Austin is a nonprofit that does not turn away anybody, period. So know that if you have friends or family that maybe don't have the financial resources that you have, or feel like they don't have adequate financial resources and I don't know that Wesleyan doesn't have something like that, but just know that that's specifically unique to Hospice Austin, and even though that's their name, they do come out to Williamson County. Also, this is important to know. If you sign up with a hospice, and for whatever reason, you don't like it, the personnel, how you're treated, I don't care what the color uniform they wear, you can transfer care, and it's relatively easy. So I'm just telling you that because sometimes people think, oh, I'm into this system now, into this home health care, into this hospice, into this palliative care, and this is just not fitting for me. So know that you do have control over that also. I also have never worked with anybody, one family. I've never worked with anybody who in the end didn't say, I'm so glad I had hospice, or I'm so glad we had palliative care. That one family had a unique family member, and it took them a while to find a hospice that was gracious enough to work with the family. So that's my caveat on that.
Okay. All right. Let's then move on to our final topic about the leaving your legacy. And I want to say in here too, I love this handout that Penny has shared with us about the ethical will worksheet. And we know that we have our estate plan for dispersing things. Well, what about the emotional part? What about the more personal part? And as I said, the seniors, the 2 developmental tasks we're going through is maintaining control, but at the same time planning for letting go and leaving a legacy, having conversations. And I appreciate the resources that Penny has shared with us on leaving legacy. Want to pick up on that?
Sure. So do any of you, I know probably all of your parents have passed on. Do any of you ever wake up in the morning and think, oh, I wish I could call mom and ask her about da-da? Me too. Unfortunately, this does not necessarily guarantee you won't ever have that emotion, or that your children won't have that emotion or that need. However, this does kind of lean you a little more towards maybe they'll be able to read things. And I'll tell you, my mom didn't leave the official living will, or ethical will, but she wrote a lot of diaries, and it is so comforting for me to read things from her perspective at that moment, because I realized she didn't know how to adult either sometimes, and she died when she was 86. So just think about that when you're gone, it's very hard to communicate back and forth across the veil we call death. And it's also a little overwhelming to think about this. I know that my husband has 3 books that one of our children has given him about, father and all this kind of thing. It's overwhelming. The poor guy looks at it and goes, oh yeah, I'll just put it back. So I'm hoping that this is a little easier for you to look at and say, oh, okay, well maybe, once every week or 2 or 3 weeks I'll, jot one answer down. So that, it's pretty self-explanatory. There's one that's copyrighted in there. It is free, and if you go to the internet, that's how you get it, is free. So if you don't, don't want to use this one, or if you're like me, I write it and I go, I don't want to change that. I do want to change this, I'll go back and print out another copy. As long as it has the copyright at the bottom, you can use that. Please do not pass it along to your friends and family without that copyright on the bottom, because they do have it. If it even is too overwhelming for that 3 or 4 page document, there is one that has just 10 questions. So trying to make it easy for you to think about this. The very last thing, we'll probably come back to this because I probably haven't hit all the things on ethical will, but the very last thing is talking with your adult children. And this is where I was coming from when we first started out, saying, you know, when you get this conversation going and you realize that they're worried about you and you're worried about them, remember the old song, I was looking back to see if you were looking back at me, that sort of thing, that conversation is a way to get through that. My husband and I often have a conversation with our very youngest child, and she uses this book called 100 Questions, and it's so cool because we sit there all evening and there's stories that come out that I look at my husband and go, wow, I never heard that one. And so these are just conversation starters, and I didn't write it down as adult children talking with their parents, because really this is about a two-way street. I bet you don't know some of the answers in here about your kids. And if you can communicate, that builds that strong net underneath all of you, so that you feel that you do have some control, and they feel they have some control, and they feel they have a voice in their lives, and vice versa. And sometimes maybe you might have come across a kid that says, wow, I had no idea that you struggled with that thing, that when the board quit, you had to use baling wire to tie it back together because you had no money left at the end of the month. So those questions are there, hopefully, because that's really what's important. Your kids maybe will get a lot of money from you. A few years in, who knows what's happened to that money. But what you give them from your heart, it's what's going to last through their life. And by mentoring them in this, the hope is that your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren will also know you and them and each other and be able to be more resilient in life because they have lived in a family unit that knows how to talk with each other and listen.
Well, it also becomes a celebration of life, remembering your life and what has been important to you. I know as we talked about downsizing and getting rid of stuff, we have a handout we've shared and so people appreciate it, where Peter Walsh, he calls it a treasure hunt. You know, remember these significant events in your life. Find something to represent that. You know, you went to camp, you won an award, oh, I still have that little charm to represent that. But hopefully, you know, it gives us a time, that's the whole point, of reflecting and sharing and communicating. So I appreciate it. I mean, you can get quite extensive on these things, but I appreciate Penny paring it down so that maybe it will be a first step. If you ever want more, we can also share more involved resources with you about that as well. Okay, I think we're going to open up for questions. All right, so this is your chance. Are there questions you have? Don?
About peace of mind. We have a Knox box
Oh,
by the front door. That gives me peace of mind that if there's a problem and no one can get to the door, they can get into the house without breaking the door down.
right. And you know, I thought at one time about adding that, and I forgot all about it. When Don was reminding us of the Knox box, and I'm looking to see if I'm saying this right. I think from the fire department, and it goes through, and then they have access to the house without breaking the door down, and so those would be something to be aware of. I think we have some information if someone needs some more about Knox box, but a way to give people authorities when necessary access to your home. And I think then in there there's some contact information, or you can put that the key, mostly, yeah. So that's a good resource.
But
How do you spell that?
COX, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
One.
Good, okay, did you get from the fire department, or did you get yours directly? Do you know where your Knox box came from? Go.
There was an article in Sunrays that years ago, that I did, and I ordered it through that information. I ordered it directly from the company.
We have information from that from last year when we did the seminar with the Georgetown police.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of the attachment, so.
Somebody, yeah, if you don't, reach out to us, we can help find that too. Were you gonna share something, Connie?
You just got it
Through the fire department? Okay. Okay,
If somebody else installs it,
right,
and they come in with their master key and put your house key inside, and it gets locked. All first responders have a key to get to a Knox box.
mm-hmm,
That's
okay.
peace of mind.
It is peace of mind. Good point. Thanks for sharing it. Yes.
Couple of things. First of all, Altus Hospice is not listed in the resources. They went through a corporate change a couple of years ago, and they have another name, but my husband worked with them, and they were both of us, and they were wonderful. He was on hospice as a record setter for 4 years, with 2 months where we weren't being served because we went through Alaska for a year. And they have wonderful jokes about, we're gonna call ourselves Altus of the Seven Seas, and we're just gonna go with you.
Well, and I know when we had a hospice speaker a few years ago, they were talking about, helping people make travel arrangements.
Yes, and so, they were wonderful.
So I'm sorry, when you started out, you said that, because we didn't have Austin Hospice on here, you said, or the name had changed?
A-L-T-U-S.
Pardon me?
A-L-T-U-S.
Altus? Okay. Okay.
Altus.
Oh, okay, and so that's one we don't have that you just wanted to call
Right.
to attention.
They
Okay.
are here in Georgetown, they have been in office in Round Rock, and they are out there on Inner Loop.
Okay.
The other thing that I would like to mention is a gift that my daughter gave me a few years ago, and it's along the lines of some of the questions and memories that go along with the ethical will. But it was for my 70th birthday, and it's headlines from the Dallas Morning News on all those years from year 1 on your birthday.
Oh,
And then there's a blank page facing that where you can record whatever you want to do. Whether it's other events that happen during that particular year, obviously not just on your birthday, but memories, events of your life, etc. I'm working my way through that, and it's fun.
so here's a great resource if you want to visit more with her, but, and so this one was from the Dallas Morning News,
It's a bound book, it's about yay big,
okay?
and each page you turn, it will show the headlines on
Wow.
your birthday of that year.
I think what's so beautiful about her story too is this, her daughter gives this to you, and then hopefully you all are using that, as the kind of communication, again, it's celebrating your life, passing that on to children, which is so
Well,
important.
I'm not as far along as I should be, I need to write in it more, but.
But you are writing in it, that's more than some of us.
And they actually looked at it this past summer.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
And Nancy, thank you for pointing out that you can go on and off a hospice also. Because there's certain things you're not allowed to have if you're on hospice, like chemotherapy treatments and stuff like that. But
Well, and the intake process, when we came back home was very easy. The renewal process over many, many months, every 60 days, it was every 90 days at first, but then it began every 60 days. It was the ultimate peace of mind.
That's great.
Thank you, Nancy.
Appreciate you sharing that. Other people have questions or resources. I think what's been neat over the years with this community, because we have a new community now that we were apart for a year and a half, as people began to share resources with one another, just as you're doing today, which is great. And, that we are all in this together and learning and sharing, so appreciate that. Other questions or resources, ideas people want to share? John?
End of life planning.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that includes what's commonly called obituary.
Mm-hmm.
I put together the story of my life, 1,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows what happened when I was 5 or 6 years old.
Right.
It goes back that far, well, 2 years old, I can remember when my sister came home from the hospital when she was born.
So he was mentioning about the obituary planning, or getting the notes and getting it for your family, and how neat that is. I mean, you're right. When something happens and it's not prepared, and kids don't know all the details, and if there's no one else, from your time period there, so that's one of the things we often see is, what would I write in there? So a couple years ago, we had a series on, I don't know what we called it. People made me change the name. They said it was about end of life planning. But we had someone from Gabriel's funeral home, and they brought a neat deck of cards that, it says life stories to share. But they also have, in fact, I do, if anyone is wanting more of that, I was an advertiser in one of their books that had a lot of those kinds of things in there. If somebody needs that, I still have a collection of those I could share with people. All right, so yeah, collecting those ideas. Michelle?
Just to add on that, it's kind of neat for us to write our own obituary, like you were saying, is letting people know more about us and how we want to be remembered. So it's kind of cool for us to be able to write that, not in a morose way, but in a celebration of life way.
Absolutely. Otherwise obituaries often becomes list of facts. Born here, went to school here, married, moved here, did this. Where's the person? And you watch funerals, memorial services, whatever, when we really get a feel for the person, and that has to start before, so that's great. Thanks, Michelle. Yes?
What I was gonna say was, what I've done over the past few years is start collecting them as I go to funerals, so you get kind of
Yeah.
Good idea.
see how.
The programs or the bulletin service, it is kind of interesting to see, absolutely. Anything else? Okay, right here, and then I'll come back to you. now.
Mine isn't that important. My book didn't have a senior living options page in it.
Oh, okay.
Was that supposed to be in it, or did you leave it out, or?
Oh, no, we didn't have that page in there, I'm sorry.
Okay,
If you
and
want
that doesn't make that much difference, but I didn't know if it was.
No, it wasn't
That's
actually.
to test your memory, see if you remember.
I said, we'll give you a test to see, and, if you need that, let me know, we'll give it to you.
And we're gonna be going over it more later.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna talk about the topic, but on the Seniors Living Smarter website, there is all that information is listed out there. And we talked about whether to include it as a handout, but then we think, how many trees do we want to take out?
That was fun.
But that's a very good question, so, now, Don.
End of life planning, in my case, I've contacted a local funeral home,
Mm-hmm.
paid for it, picked up my casket, got it equipped with a shelf for cookies
Oh, okay.
and a beer spigot.
Oh, beer spigot. Okay, you're gonna have a great afterlife life here or something.
And also when we passed through Aurora, Illinois, where I have the family plots, I have my headstone in place. That doesn't have to be taken care of, or even getting the grave sites, there's gonna be a fee to open the grave, $200.
Talk about peace of mind for your family. I know when my sister passed away, it's 3 years ago now, and she'd had it all planned, the service, what music she wanted, what she wanted to have happen, and it made it so much easier for her daughters. And it's one of those things some of us are always going to, but you never know. And, so just those ideas that we continue to collect and share, okay? Connie.
On your transportation, I looked down here, I told
one of these services are you expecting for?
What she was asking is if you are going to have a medical procedure which requires, you know, you're going to, and you don't, your spouse is not able to drive you home, do you have a recommendation for that? And I can't remember, Stacy, do you all do with Visiting Angels? Do you all help out with that? If someone's having a medical procedure and they're gonna need a ride home and they're wanting, you know, are there some of these transportation services that would help? And I'll ask you too in just a minute, but I think I've had people that have called on you for that, right?
Yeah, so we have clients who.
This is
use
Visiting Angels speaking.
Yeah, you can use Visiting Angels one time for one drive for 1 hour, home from an appointment and never need it again, or multiple times. So it's very common, post-surgery, cataract procedure, anything like that. If your clinic is requiring that you can't use an Uber or a taxi, a lot of times they're requiring you use have a real person that can also assist you with getting inside and making sure you're safe and all of that. So yes, Visiting Angels does that with no contract or minimum.
So that's not under transportation, but you still come under transportation through you.
Yeah, so caregiver agencies or home care agencies.
And how much would that cost to go?
It's by the hour, so it just depends on the agency, and what their hourly rate is. It can range anywhere from $20 to $40 an hour. But some agencies have a 4-hour minimum, some have no minimum or a 1 hour. So for Visiting Angels, we do the 1 hour minimum.
Okay, so it's 1 hour. Are you taking the person down for the surgery? Is somebody needing to be there to access or to assist?
So,
And
yeah.
So
Yes.
so you're expecting it would be 1 hour surgery or 1 hour in total of the person going from the house to the surgery, having the surgery, and returning within 1 hour?
It can be just a minimum of an hour, all the way up to 24
minimum.
hours.
So a
you
minimum
can
of
schedule
an
it
hour,
for any block of time.
but say it's say 4 hours. So by the time someone drives you to the hospital or clinic or wherever, you have a procedure, if you have to wait and so on, they drive you home, they make sure you're in your home safe and sound.
Yep.
And so whatever number of hours that required, so it's, in your case, it's not a set, it's gonna cost so much, it's whatever the hours would be. So
Right,
that would
it's
be a great
customized.
thing to visit, because I've had some people who have used her services for that, so that's great. Lou had a question.
No, I was gonna say, almost all Advantage Care contracts provide free transportation to and from that procedure.
Okay,
It's free. If you have an Advantage Care, most Advantage Care contracts. They
okay,
were Scott and White's expensive for sure, I can tell you that, I've used it.
okay, all right.
But they
So,
don't-
take.
But they don't supply the person sitting there waiting, so that's a little bit of difference. The
Yeah.
one through Scott and White, the Advantage Care is,
Yeah, but the one coming
is they
back-
just drive you back and
Well,
forth, they
the one
don't
that comes back,
stay.
probably it's not the same one that took you up there.
Right, so that's, it gets you there and gets you back, but
Yeah.
the kind of the difference is having someone actually physically there the whole time that you're in and getting the information coming back out, so that's a little tiny bit different.
And it probably depends on your situation, your procedure, you know, some people just that emotional support, you know, when I've had a procedure done, and at least that's the same face who brought me in, and I feel comfortable. Others, it's so, you know, the resources available and what works best for the individual is important. Do we have one more question, or?
Here. This lady with one of your nice masks on, she had her hand up, was gonna say something
Oh,
about this.
that's right, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, my experience with Visiting Angels wasn't at all like that. They require a 4-hour minimum, and there's an expense for the person driving your car, or you have to lend them your car. So it's quite more expensive than what she was talking
Well,
about.
okay.
At least that was that's what I was told.
Okay, so that wasn't here locally, that was.
Yes, no, it was Georgetown. It was the Georgetown Visiting Angels.
Georgetown Visiting
stories, and we don't have all the specific facts, but Stacy is with Visiting Angels, and so, but anyway, there are differences, but speak to the source and get the information, I think is the most important part.
And Stacy, could the difference be that maybe you're talking about a loved one that's in the home and you're gonna care for them, every week for an hour or whatever, as opposed to this specific instance, we need someone to go with me, drive me down there, stay with me, come back. Is there a difference on that?
There's not a difference with Visiting Angels Georgetown. We've never had a minimum, whether it's for driving or for care in the home. But it may just depend on what kind of driving situation you need, right? If you need driven to an appointment and back, but it's a short little window, it may be difficult to have, we're not a taxi service, right? So a caregiver may not be able to just take you there, drop you off, and you're only charged for that little time and then come back. They may need to stay for that chunk of time, and you're paying for 3 or 4 hours versus little tiny increments of time. So there's so many customizable things depending on your circumstance, but we will never require you to have to use us a certain length of time.
Anything else? Lord, we're nearing our end time here. I want to thank Penny for sharing with us today, and I want to thank Penny for all of her support of the seminars all the years. And it's really meant a lot to me, and thank you for sharing today. And as she says, these are tidbits to get you thinking about it. If you want to follow up with more specifics from her, feel free to come up here and talk with her afterwards. Again, I want to encourage you to visit with our educational partners, and don't forget your little yellow evaluation feedback sheet. Brielle has an empty basket up on the table where you can leave those as you leave. And look forward. I hope we will see you next month. Bring your binder back, and you'll get your next section. Next month, it will be an update about the real estate market. I know people are, often curious. Our market's continues to be a little crazy. But what do we see? And I'll be sharing that information. Both what do we see as trends within the real estate market, and I can share specific data on the different areas. What are we seeing days on market? How does it compare with last year? Tips for selling your home. And every market is different. And right now, we've have a lot of quick turnarounds. So we never know how long that's going to continue.
Did you say you were going to say something about the downsizing
Oh,
club?
thank you so
I
much.
just see them shaking.
Now that I was supposed to say.
You said you were going to.
I need someone to keep us on our toes here. Appreciate that. Downsizing club. On our Seniors Living Smarter Services table, there is a page there. Debbie can help you find that. What Downsizing Club is, we've had a lot of people over the years who know they're going to be downsizing. And it's overwhelming, I'll just say that. But we're trying to simplify it for people. So the Downsizing Club is really a support group. We meet once a month, and we've just started this last May. And where are you, Brielle? I'm not seeing you there. Oh, down there. Brielle facilitates it with me. And so we've had people who, they're not moving for 2 or 3 years, but they know they want to start the downsizing process. In most cases, what am I going to do with my stuff? And what are ways that we can deal with that? They become a support group to one another as people share resources. One woman was great about, she'd visited several different communities, and people were asking her questions about what was she looking for in these communities? How was this process working for her? So if you want more information, you can visit with me afterwards. We meet the first Thursday of each month, and from 10 to 11:30. There is a fee for that, because we share a lot of resources, and a lot of time commitment goes into that. And then if we go on to be your realtor, then you're rebated that fee anyway. But there's a lot, it's hand holding as people are, searching through some of the decisions they're making requiring downsizing. But I can visit some more with you.
So is there a fee per time, or you just pay a fee to belong to the?
Oh, you just pay a fee one time. Some people are there for a few months and then they've already moved. Others are going to be on a long-term plan.
Okay.
So maybe meeting with us 2 years from now.
So the sooner you join, the cheaper it gets.
Yeah, with more services, more times included. But it's been really fun. We have a woman who, when we had our meeting in December, and we were asking them, has this been successful? It has so reduced the overwhelm. And she goes, I just didn't know where to begin and what to do. And between the resources, we bring in speakers to focus specifically on downsizing, which means, the liquidation and stuff, understanding about mood management. Sometimes it looks so overwhelming, and people will go in and visit a place and say, okay, I'm ready to move to that community. And you go home and look at all the stuff in your house, and you forget it. It's just, no way. Well, there are resources to help you, and that's what we do. Oh, I'm going to let you in on one more little recommendation or whatever here. As we've been talking about the communities today, in fact, Michelle is here, and she's from Bader House, which the names have changed, but memory care.
At Georgetown.
What?
It was the reserve at Georgetown.
And before that, it was,
Autumn.
so if you keep up with all that, but now it's Bader. But what I want to say is,
Georgetown, there's a story behind it, but
we'll find that out later. When we talked about the senior living options, I encourage you to think about these as communities. And the difference that sometimes we use, the word facilities. Well, what does facilities imply? Facilities seems more negative to me, more limiting, more cold, but for those of us in the industry, hopefully we're looking at these as communities. Independent living communities, assisted living, memory care, because you're still living rich lives, and it is a community. So some of you, and we laugh in Downsizing Club, if someone uses the word facility, what? It's a community, But back to, it was one guy, the ones who moved to Longhorn Village, he had this detailed Excel spreadsheet that they put together as they were visiting communities, finding the one that worked best for them. And just as people share those kinds of service resources, it works for them. Oh, Michelle?
I was just gonna mention something on your downsizing. That is a great gift for your kids.
Absolutely.
Every time I visit my mom, I just said, you can start distributing.
Here's what she's saying is, all that stuff in your house, your kids are probably, please do something with it. And Michelle is speaking from the adult child perspective of what a gift to give to your parents. And yes, we've made end-of-life plans. We have all this other stuff prepared. Well, the less they have to go through, the greater the gift can be. Brielle works with, she's just such an amazing person to work together. She's encouraging her in-laws and her parents to downsize. Get rid of stuff. Anyway, okay, love to visit with you afterwards for more information. Hope to see you in February. Bring your binder back so we can add more pages to it. Again, thank Penny, thank Jeff, and Brielle. Thank our educational partners. Anything else? Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.